Is there something that you're all about right now? Maybe a food, a book, a song, something that you're just love spending your time with right now?
Oh, that's a great question. In the off season, like I'm a huge music junkie, but I don't think in the way I'm not. I don't play any instruments. I wish I did. It's weird. I have a lot of friends who do, and I've always had this very weird relationship with music in the sense that like I feel songs the way maybe musicians would, but I don't have that talent. Like I don't. It feels like another language, like an intuition or another language. And I know I'm not the only one. Like music is so popular for a reason. Like it makes people feel, it makes people think. But I've been just trying to go to as many concerts as I can because during the season, a lot of the nights when artists are in town, Saturday night, the Bruins are usually playing. So my summers are spent trying to like go to little and big concerts. I'm finishing a book. Okay, this is so cheesy, but have you heard of the Anne of Green Gables series or no?
Yes, because my mom was
Okay.
obsessed with it and like I think read some of the books or maybe like a kid's version of the books to us growing up. That's so funny.
Okay. So my family, same thing. I think it's like the mom era. It was really big back in the day, so to speak. And it is like a teenage girl's book, but you know, if you grew up in like the 40s or 50s, which is crazy, it's so long ago, it was like that generation. And I never read them. And my mom's like, "So I know you're in your 30s and you might be too old for this, but just give this a go. It's the summer." And I'm actually obsessed. So I'm reading a teenage girl's book right now, but it's so good. It's so fun, and I'm listening to music. So kind of weird little tidbits for you, but you asked, so that's what I'm up to right now.
Yeah. No, not weird at all. I think it's great. And sometimes, you need a little nostalgia or serotonin in different ways for the old school things. So I love that. I haven't heard that book series name in a long time. So if I tell my mom, she's going to have me start reading it. So I might be on the
Yes.
train with you. That's good. Well, we had a big weekend in the WNBA, and we're going to cover two games. And first, we'll start with the defending champs, the New York Liberty against the Indiana Fever. Indiana was not able to protect the house, coming up just short, 90-88 against New York. And this was a game of runs. It was back and forth. The game came down to the wire. It was actually tied at 88 with just under 3 seconds remaining. But Sabrina Ionescu, championship focus, gets to the rim and hits both free throws. My dad would always tell me growing up, free throws win games, especially, some people say defense win games. That's very true. But in basketball, at the end of the game, it's always the free throw. But what's so crazy about this game is that even though there were 3 seconds left, the Fever still got the ball back. And who do they get the ball to? None other than Caitlin Clark. So Caitlin Clark gets the ball. She's going up for a three. And Natasha Cloud, she said otherwise. She swatted the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands. And this was definitely a little bit of another controversial play. Feels like we've seen a ton of these in the WNBA, especially surrounding the Fever just recently. So it's pretty wild that we had another one over the weekend, but great defensive play. Obviously, the Fever wanted the foul, but the game ended. The Fever weren't able to come up with it. But just feeling the emotions around that game, when I stepped back and I was looking over the game and looking at what people were saying, it was all surrounding that last play, that last foul. And yes, it came at the end of the game, so that makes it more significant. But just from your perspective, I know you spend a lot of your time with hockey, but just seeing posts about the WNBA and seeing the dialect that's going on, do you feel like there is this heightened awareness over the fouls and the controversial calls that have come up almost more so than the game itself?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think if you talk to two different people, and we're going to put me in the audience that isn't obviously a basketball connoisseur or someone who's diehard and like following the teams and keeping up, because that hockey is obviously my thing. So you have me in that category as kind of like a fan on the outside that keeps up when I can, but I'm not following everything. And then if you were to ask someone who was following the league or maybe working for the league or for a team within the league, they'd probably have different answers. But if you're asking me, yeah, like you feel like a lot of the storylines or some of the focus tends to be around like a little bit of controversy or drama, which is very real, and like that's not manufactured for the most part in games. But storylines can definitely be pushed, and certain narratives can be pushed based on the media. I mean, that's the media's job, and they decide what they think is important. Luckily, we do have the ability to go to social media and like a player's perspective. The player's voice has never been more valuable or more known than now. Before, even when I started covering hockey, let's say around 20 years ago, you write something about a player, they really don't have much to say about it until they get a journalist to like the next day, because it wasn't immediate either, right? It wasn't like the Twitter days where everything's so immediate. The next day or the next week, publish the other angle or their version. But it was a whole different story. So yeah, like I feel like, to answer your question, are we talking about the game itself? Or are we talking a little bit about controversy at the end of the game, or fouls, or missed calls, or reffing, so on and so forth? That seems to be dominating. But I want to like say that with the space that I'm not someone who's constantly following it. And so maybe someone in that position would say otherwise and say better. Maybe I'm just getting kind of like the headlines, or what they call like the 6-second stories. You know, you read a headline, you don't really dive into it, and that's what you take away from it. So that's not really fair, because to really know, you got to deep dive. But from an outside perspective, you seem to be right about that.
Yeah, I think no, I think that's dead on with the headlines, and that's at least what I've seen is that yes, the stories that are being covered post game might be about the game, and you were going to see who was killing it and who wasn't, who stepped up and who didn't, but really the headlines are the drama of it all, right? So let's just get to this game. The Fever actually outscored the Liberty 30-13 in the third quarter, which is pure domination. Just looking at those numbers, Stewart, Jones, and Ionescu really stepped it up though and got them back in the game quickly, and that's when you see that championship level experience. They know, they have that taste in their mouth of what it's like to win. They are early in the season, but they really just stepped up and showed their veteran leadership on this team. But let's hear from the Fever's head coach, Stephanie White, on what she had to say after this game.
I thought she got fouled. You know, I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games. You know, a minus 31 free throw discrepancy. And I might be able to understand it if we were just chucking threes, but we're not. We're attacking the rim. And the disrespect right now for our team has been pretty unbelievable. So it's disappointing, you know, that it doesn't go both ways, or it hasn't gone both ways. But we also can't allow that to consume us, right? Like, we've got to be able to play through that. We've got to be able to control the things that we can control. You know, I felt like at times our late game execution was good, and I consider most of the latter half of the fourth quarter, because it was a tight ball game. We're still not recognizing our mismatches. You know, I felt like AB had plenty of opportunities. We could have gotten her touches down low, and you know, we had some turnovers, key turnovers. We settled at times. You know, we fought, but we can't dig ourselves a hole from the beginning.
I joked with Casey last week that when Stephanie White says AB, she's referring to Aaliyah Boston, but I always forget and think that for some reason I'm on the Indiana Fever and think she's talking to me when she says AB. I perk up for a second. So I even did that there. But egregious is what she said. It's egregious. And, you know, it is a bummer to feel like as a coach and as a team that there's something against you, right? That's out of your control. I mean, 31 free throw discrepancy, like that's pretty crazy just to look at it. So you have to wonder, is this really a thing? Are they favoring not the Fever really in that sense? But I think at the same time, she did a great job of basically saying, hey, but there's other things we got to worry about as a team, and X's and O's on the court.
Yeah, and you know, there are more names in the WNBA than, of course, Caitlin Clark, and I know that that's a big one that stands out. And that's, in a way, it's great because she's bringing fans to the game. In a way, it overshadows some of the other talent, you know, and this is not like her fault at all. But if we're just talking about that storyline and that narrative, does a team that has like a superstar like that, do they get a little bit more maybe negative attention from the refs? You know, I think about refs as humans all the time, and like, this is totally unfair because we'd have to talk to them, but as a human, you're aware when there's more attention on a game that you're reffing versus one that maybe is in a smaller market or doesn't have as many fans, and even if it's subconscious, there could be pressure to like make the right call, and sometimes when you're overthinking something, then you make a mistake, or you know, like, there's could be so many factors as to what's going on. But WNBA aside, I know even in the NBA, some of the calls are so egregious as to what a foul is or isn't, and we have the benefit of replays. There are some, and I say this with all due respect because obviously I love the C's and I'm from Toronto, I've enjoyed watching the Raptors, fan of the NBA, but sometimes it's just impossible to watch when you're like, seriously, like that was a foul and this could be like a game changer. So it's not just the Fever or the WNBA. The NHL experienced the same thing for a while, where we were really on the line of like, what is goalie interference? Some goals that were taken back that you're like, what the hell, that 100% should have been a goal. And that when the reffing kind of gets the storyline and the headline, it takes away from the game. And I understand there's a grace period of like learning what is and isn't, especially when there are rule changes. So for the NHL, it was goal interference. The offside call sometimes is by millimeters margins. That's very controversial as well. Goals are taken back because of an offside or not an offside. And it's, very confusing. So it's not just, we're not just seeing this in the WNBA. And again, I'm not following closely enough to know if the Fever really are a team that feel like they've been attacked or penalized or getting these calls or not. But it is a problem all throughout sports. And I wish it could just be figured out. I think fouls sometimes are really tough calls. And I'm just lucky I'm not making those decisions because we get, like I said, we get replay. And I get to see and look and be like, that was such a dumb call, or that was fair. Like, there's so many factors that go into it. It's just too bad that that's kind of like the storyline.
Definitely. And I love that you just bring the human part into it. I even thought about this while I was at Gillette Stadium cheering on the NCAA lacrosse that was going on. I'm, mad at the refs or certain plays. I'm like, okay, I probably would also be struggling making that call. So it is definitely a very difficult position. But I do think as we get into the playoffs and as we get into postseason, that will all kind of smooth out. And hopefully there's a little more regularity to the refs and the calling and what's going on. And the temperatures really we're really concerned about the temperatures, just being in the media and being fans of the game, of how we can really focus more on what's actually being played in the game plan. But let's get to the game winning team with Sabrina Ionesco. Here's what she had to say after the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge for us, especially to be able to get a game like this early in the year on the road, and a gritty win. I think it's impressive. And for us, it wasn't pretty. And I think being able to see how we're able to grind games out, continue to stay together, and win when it's ugly. And that's, when you get to the end of the year, that's kind of what it looks like. And the ability for us to be able to get that today, I think, was huge for our group to see we can kind of come back from anything. And I also think it just shows us areas we need to continue to be better. Like in the third quarter, we should not be outscored 30-13. If we're not, then this game is a completely different game. And so I think it's great for us to be able to get challenged like that from a great team, to be able to continue to find ways to improve.
Yeah, you have to bet that the Liberty thought they were in a pretty good spot after coming back from a 30-13 deficit in the third quarter. And like Sabrina Ionesco said, they're feeling good. They know that the game probably would have looked really different if not. But I do think this game was so pivotal, especially for the Fever, but also the Liberty, because they saw early in the season, hey, look what we can do. Look what situations we can get ourselves out of. And I just saw that even with college lacrosse, and just being reminded this weekend, like if you don't get battle tested throughout the season and all your games are kind of a breeze and you don't get into those, hey, need goal situations with 2 minutes left or you're down, you got to come back from a huge deficit. It's really hard to pull that out of nowhere in a championship game, in the playoffs, in the postseason, when you need to dig a little deeper. And so I think it's great that they were able to have this game, but also it's entertainment. It's fun for fans to watch, and we got a good game out of it.
Yeah, parity I think is so important. I don't know what the parity's like in the WNBA. I don't like the NBA super teams, like players get to text each other and be like, okay, let's play on this team together, and like the money's getting thrown around. I really hate that, to be honest with you. I find it takes away from the spirit, I guess, of competitiveness and the sport. And I love like having a salary cap in the NHL, and I know it's frustrating, but it's so fun. Like the turnover season to season, teams can look so different, and you have to make these really smart moves in order to build these like long-term championship teams. But I digress. I'm just kind of to that point, like the adversity and diversity of talent on certain teams, and like you said, kind of digging deep and coming out with the win because you had to grind it out, is so important. It's a muscle. You're a former athlete, that it's a muscle that you absolutely have to train, and you have to have that like muscle memory, but also emotional memory of being like, we've been here before and we did it. We can do it again. And we saw it. I keep bringing it back to the Bruins. I'm sorry, you're going to get sick of me, but every time you bring up a reference, I'm going to bring it back to the Bruins.
No,
but
it's
we
good.
did see it with the Bruins a couple seasons ago with this record-winning season, and then they get bounced in the first round, which was absolutely not what was supposed to happen, and what should have happened. And it's not like that team didn't have grit. It puts like teams in a interesting position. And I tried to ask Jim Montgomery, who was the coach at the time, I tried to ask him, like, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, right, Annabelle? Because like you're having this great season, you're killing it. You're not like you're not just bowling over teams. Like there are wins that required effort. You don't ever want to manufacture stress. Like if you're just winning because you're playing well, you're not going to try to lose on purpose. You know what I mean? Like it's such a hard place because you want to keep rolling, you want to keep the good habits going, but then all of a sudden you're winning like 25 out of 30 games, and you're like, yeah, we haven't had a lot of controversy, and the playoffs are coming, and big moments are coming. How do you do that? How do you get a team to like start, with a 3-goal deficit and then come back? You don't tell them like, hey guys, let's give up a couple of goals and then we'll get out of it. It's a weird spot. It's like it has to happen naturally, and it's so good for the teams when it does. And like you said, that's the entertainment factor you want to see. There are some teams that dominate and you can bet that they're probably going to win. They're 7 out of 10 or whatever it is. But when you're seeing come from behind wins, when you're seeing players dig deep, like that's why we love sport, and that's why we watch it.
It is. And a team that has been in those deficit positions but really hasn't found a way out is the Dallas Wings. And it's shocking because you have the number 1 draft pick in Paige Beckers, and you have other free agents that sign, and you have a coach that people were all excited about, and you're in Dallas, a city that thinks that every team that they have is America's team, okay? So it was another big game. It was the Dallas Wings against the Dream over the weekend, and the Dallas Wings are still winless at 0-4. They lost to the Dream 83-75, handing the Wings their 4th loss of the season. And this was the Dream's home opener, so that that they really came out. They're like, we cannot lose, with a brand new court that had a new design in the middle of it. Everybody go check that out. They did not want to lose at home. But the real story isn't about the Dream. It's really just about how this Dallas team hasn't found a way. Their starters were 13 for 47, and then everybody else was just 36% overall shooting. So that's really bad, right? And so that's just not what you want to see coming out of the gates for this team, that a city that was so excited about it with Paige Beckers. I mean, you got all of UConn cheering on Dallas and being the new Dallas fans, but just wondering, with having a new, star and having a new coach and really getting a fan bases surrounded, how do you feel the city of Dallas just feels about this disappointing 0-4 start for them?
I mean, definitely disappointing. You always, if we were talking 4-0, it'd be so fun and the hype and all that. But I think for fans that have been, watching the WNBA for a while, or just any sport, they understand there's a grace period with a brand new star player getting used to media attention, a brand new coach, the coach finding their voice, the team finding their identity, building a culture, not getting caught up in the headlines. Like, there's got to be a grace period. And even if that grace period is a whole season, so be it. Like, yes, that sucks, but and that's not what you want, but you hope that the fan base is loyal enough to get those tickets and those butts in the seats, because that's very important. We've talked about that. You want to be supporting teams financially with swag. And if you're blowing it out of the park, then you're making the 6 o'clock news all the time. You're making the highlights. You're selling more tickets. People are buying jerseys. Understood that that's very important. But again, the expectation of just because you have a superstar player that it's got to be different is not necessarily fair. And I'm not saying you were putting it on there, but that's the fans need a little bit of patience. Bringing it back to hockey just again, Connor Bedard was a recent number 1 overall draft pick, like the next, whatever the upcoming best player in the world projected to be, and his team, the Chicago Blackhawks, struggling to not able to make the postseason. People know they're in what's called a rebuild, a retool. I'm not sure about Dallas and what position they're in with that, but just from what you said, with a new coach and a star player in their first season, it takes a while to find your voice, takes a while to find your culture. Don't let the losses, like if you're on that team, I'm sure coach is saying, don't worry about it. We're going to find a way. And, maybe you reassess mid-season if things aren't going your way about changing some things up. But systems, plays, team defense, all that kind of stuff gets sorted. It's early on in the season. Hopefully people can just chill about it. And maybe next week or in the next couple of weeks when we revisit the topic, we're talking about them stringing together a couple wins.
I think so. I think, too, when you have that grace and that hope really for your season, you're able to get a win under your belt. But here's Dallas Wings head coach Chris Koklanis after the game.
Yeah, I just am encouraged by our continued fight and not laying over. And you've seen it in every game, right? There were opportunities where, which way is this going to go? And every single time, it's gone in a way that tells me that this group has a fight within them, and so that's something that you can get behind.
They definitely have a fight. And so there's that hope, there's that grace that you just mentioned that the head coach is talking about. So I'm not too worried about the Dallas Wings, but definitely they need to get it going here in a little bit. But when we come back, we got some fun WNBA fits, mainly from the Indiana Fever, that you'll have to check out. We'll break down NCAA Final Four, so stay tuned. We'll catch you back on Respect Your Game. Well, just as much fun as watching basketball is, there are some fun fits that we get to see before the game and during the game in the stand. So here are some of our favorite fits from the Indiana Fever. We'll start off with Lexi Hull showing up in this awesome jacket in honor of the Indy 500. That was yesterday. Sophia, what do you think about this fit?
I love it. I would definitely, if I could pull that off, maybe I could. I would definitely be wearing that.
Yes, you can. You definitely pull that off.
The black with the boots and the color jacket, like that's the 10 out of 10 for me.
I love it. I do love when athletes are able to pair a game day fit with what's going on in the world. And even I know, I think 2 years ago, last year, Tim McGraw was at his concert and he was wearing an Caitlin Clark jersey that because he was probably in the area or in Iowa. And so I love that and when people are able to bring in the surrounding, what's going on into the outfit. But let's get to another awesome fit that I love. DeWanna Bonner popping off in the blazer. I can't tell if it's denim or if it's just blue, but I love this outfit.
Okay, love it as well. Love the sparkle, the shorts, the big shorts. I don't know if it's denim either, but if it is like sequin denim, very cool. This is like, see, this would be so fun to be able to do. In the NHL, there's a strict dress code, and I definitely respect it. But I do think, I wish like once a year we can see the players have some like personality pop because they have to wear suits. And as someone who broadcasts for the NHL, I definitely try to, class it up with like mostly like business casual attire or whatever, suits, sometimes nice dresses. Something like this would be so bold and probably too bold for on air. Maybe not, but this is something if like I definitely knew I had permission to, I would 100% wear it. Very cool. Do you like it?
Love it. I do. Anytime we can get a sparkle in there, I'm all for it. But Caitlin Clark with our outfit number 3. And I love this because it gives kind of what you said, that business casual, but also we got a tank top and a cute little purse. I think I saw something on the purse that it's got some baller charms on it. But love Caitlin and how she's able to stay classy, but also dress it up and make it a little fun.
Yeah, no, like I said, the not having like a strict dress code, you can go fancy with that like sequin jacket. You can do khaki slacks and like white tank top with whatever. I love seeing the personality of these outfits. I don't, let me think. I'm looking at it. I'm cool with it. I would probably rock Vans with it. I'm a big Vans girl.
Okay.
And like I said, if I'm allowed, like I usually wear heels to the game. If I'm allowed, I'd be rocking Vans with it. But I'm never here to criticize a woman and how she chooses to dress. Not my favorite, but if she's happy and she rocks it, then I love it.
I love it. Well, I do like seeing all the, here we go. I love seeing the players, but I really like seeing the fans. Wow. This fan came out with all of those jerseys on her. I mean, it's probably hard to walk around a little bit, but kind of like a cape.
Yeah. Okay, wait. Do we know what is happening here? Is she just fans of everyone that she is wearing, or what do you?
She clearly is fans of these are the women on the team, mainly the girls who play and the women who play. So she definitely wanted to come out and basically say, "Hey, I like all of you, not just Caitlin Clark." But I do like it. I think this is great.
I love it too. I love the creativity with like the pants and like, yeah, it definitely looks like a cape. And props to this lady. I want to see more of this, I'm trying to think of like some good hockey outfits that we've seen. Do you know if anyway, there's in the playoffs, the Winnipeg Jets, they're out right now, but they have something called the whiteout where everyone's wearing white towels. Like in postseason, teams do this. I'm sure you've seen it everywhere. But there were like a bunch of men that showed up in wedding dresses to the game. So these like guys,
no way.
like pop guys with like hairy chests with like tube top or sweetheart wedding dresses and veils just so they can be in white. And it was so creative and so funny to watch. And there's like 10 of them with beers in their hand and hairy legs and like these wedding dresses. So that kind of stuff just I love it. I love when fans go bonkers, get creative. And if we think about the root word of fan, it's fanatic. You know what I mean? Like, you're a fanatic of the team, and like that's what makes it fun. So props to that lady and the creativity. I hope we can see more of this kind of stuff and highlight it on the show.
Definitely. That woman was definitely a fanatic, and that's a lot of jerseys. And props, sometimes those jerseys are expensive, so let's go to her for doing that and pulling the plug on those. And it is fun when you see other people in the stands. I think it's all entertainment, right? And so it makes the experience more fun, not only for the players to see that, but mainly for the other fans. But let's get to some NCAA lacrosse, because we had a big weekend in Foxborough at Gillette Stadium. It was the men's and the women's national championship for collegiate lacrosse, and UNC women's lacrosse took home the Natty. The nickname is that it's the University of National Champions, and that's what they were this year. They went undefeated, 22-0, with a big win, 12-8 over the powerhouse Northwestern Wildcats. And just being at Gillette Stadium, Pats Nation, they were paid a special visit earlier in the week that might have just been that extra little boost that they needed to get over the hump and win that game. So here is Drake May, New England Patriots quarterback, addressing the UNC women's lacrosse team.
I think it means something, especially seniors, graduates, kind of your last time out. Finish off right, and what a time to do it, and what a place. So best of luck. I'm sure I'll be cheering y'all on. Anytime I got some Carolina Tarheels in here, that's for me. So.
All right, well, Sophia, I have to imagine that the other teams in the Final Four were like, what? We would have loved the New England Patriots quarterback to give us a hype speech and go to New England Patriots practice. But how do you feel like that helped UNC get over the hump and win the Natty?
I mean, it's so cool anytime you have a professional athlete, whether they're like a veteran or young and new and in his glory youth days, his or her rather. It's special, someone to take the time out of their day to address your team. As you know, again, being an athlete, even though it's different sports, there's so many parallels. You can talk about, compete and grind and will and what it takes to be a champion and all that. And I think that would just be such a pleasure and such a pleasant surprise. As a young budding journalist, I remember earlier in my days when I wasn't even on air, I don't think I even had like an internship yet. I was like interning to be an intern, like weird. Like it was a whole thing. But I remember we had this big group of internships. This is how it worked. We had this big group of interns rather, and then we were all competing for an internship. So it was like all weird and toxic. But there were like 30 of us. Guy came in who was a broadcaster, and he all gave us a pep talk, and it was huge for me. Like that did so much for me. He told us about the grind. He told us about putting our head down and like how to get to where we want to be. And I still remember that from that day. So I hope most of those athletes will remember that moment, especially if it's paired with a win. And it doesn't matter who it is, how many rings or how much experience. I mean, I'm sure that does matter. Actually, I do take that back, but I guess I'm saying you just have respect for people who know what it takes to get to a certain level, and what a nice little treat for them.
Definitely. Fun field trip, too, while you're on your business trip trying to win the Natty. But here's winning head coach Jenny Levy after the game.
First of all, congratulations to Northwestern on a great season, obviously, Big Ten champs. And, our opponents always make us better. Whether it's playing through the ACC or our non-conference games, that challenges our team and our coaches to be the best that we can be. So congrats to Northwestern. It's a full team effort. We started building this team last year, and obviously, so happy for what we did. I'm kind of in shock because this have a very different feel than 22. But I'm looking down at who scored, who did what, but. I thought Sam Forrest played amazing, and the defense was incredible, shutting down what they go to and how they score. Betty played great, and the cage really anchored us. And then, obviously, Schweitzer's she's a blocker in there and did a great job. We took, she had 17 saves today, but our team's been tough all year. Nothing's phased them. They've been poised. We were a little nervous early. We settled down. And just a total team effort. What Sophie did on the draw with Eliza Osborne and Kaylee Harden was amazing. And just overall, just the opportunity to win a national championship doesn't happen to everybody. And for these guys, it's a lifelong experience that they'll always remember, and you'll always be national champs. So congrats.
Well, this will definitely be a championship that Jenny Levy will remember because it is the very first mother-daughter combination to win a national championship, Jenny Levy with her freshman daughter, Kate Levy. So just so special for them to have that memory together. And she scored a goal in the game, which is just so cool. So shout out to UNC Women's Lacrosse because that is just incredible. But another amazing part of this championship was that it was a record-breaking game. Attendance for the women's national championship was over 14,000 fans, which is absolutely wild. But I really think it has to do with playing the game in an NFL stadium. The last game last year's was in Cary, North Carolina at a soccer stadium. It was a beautiful facility, but there were not that many fans there just because it didn't have the capacity. And I think when you also pair the guys tournament with the girls tournament, there leaves that much more room for crossover with, hey, I already went to the girls game, but hey, why don't we go the day in between the girls game and go see the guys game and vice versa. And so I think it's so cool to see the amount of fans that were there, the amount of young girls that came out to support either team, any team. Very exciting and a big win for women's lacrosse.
Yeah, so much to take from all that you said on. I'll start with like just the attendance. It makes sense. Like, let's just group the guys and girls together. I know, different, same sport, but of course there are differences, XYZ, but let's turn this to an event. Let's make this an event where families, you're setting up booths, you're setting up tables, you're setting up swag, you're setting up gear. I don't know about food trucks, but whatever. All that goes into putting on an event, maybe little concerts or music and announcement and whatever goes on to putting on any event. It makes sense when you have a men's and a women's one. Group them together or as close as you can. Make it like an event for kids, maybe little boys who want to be lacrosse players, want to go out for the day, but they're having so much fun. And like you said, they're doing both. And so I love the idea of that, bringing attendance, bringing money, and giving families something to do on a long weekend as well. Like, why not check it out? So very smart to be able to do that. Like you said, like it's memories, and it's monumental for women to be able to play, and for men who play lacrosse for that matter, at Gillette Stadium. You're like in a professional NFL stadium, you're on the turf, you're looking up into the stands, into the crowd, and wondering what it would be to be a Patriots player, to be an NFL player playing there. So I think great idea, great event, and great initiative by the league. I have so much more to say about this, but I feel like we're getting a countdown to commercial, so maybe we'll talk about it when we get back. I'll let you toss to commercial, though.
Yeah, well, when we get back, we'll talk all that. And a cool story from the unfortunate losing team, Northwestern Wildcats, and how their head coach really gave a gift to their team. Well, even though they lost, there was a super cool story from the Northwestern head coach, Kelly Monty-Hiller. She's Hingham, Mass native. So for her to come back at Gillette Stadium was just so special for her, and growing up there and then bring her team back. They weren't able to get to that championship game when they had the tournament at Gillette years ago. So really cool. But she got all of her players Boston Scally caps to wear. She gave them this during a team dinner one of the nights, and the players actually wore the Scally caps to the post-game presser, which I thought was an awesome way to bring a little light into what was a really hard moment. But I know for me, I've been in these situations where you've lost a championship game, and I might not have been at the presser, but I have been asked, so hey, AB, can you go grab your captain and the 3 seniors, and we're going to bring them to the press conference. And I've had to be the one to go get them when they probably don't want to go to the media and talk in a really hard moment. So Sophia, I know you've probably been in very similar situations like this. How would you handle being the media and having to go grab a player who probably really doesn't want to talk to you in a hard moment?
Yeah, that is a definitely very awkward and very tough situation. But so in the NHL, and I don't know about other leagues, like I know, for example, most of the leagues we're addressing in this show have a PR team that would do that for you. So I'm actually not physically ever going into a room and being like, can I talk to you? It's like the PR comes up with the guys that they're going to make available. We ask, so we'll say we want to talk to this person, this person, this person, and then they go get them. Although that did change. I feel like because there's so much more media now in locker rooms, it's like a friggin' jungle, that's why they have to do it that way. But back in the day when I started, the room would just be open, and guys would be sitting in their stalls, sweating and heads down and sometimes swearing, and you got to go and be like, I need an angle for my story. I've always struggled with this. I'm glad you're asking me, but I do think I might be the exception to the rule. I think a lot of media is, they're hard nosed and they have deadlines and they have a job too. And they just they've just got to get their quote. Whereas for me, when I first started, it wasn't a make or break situation in the sense that my story didn't depend on it. I was just gathering sound for a media station that used it. So it didn't really matter who I got. And so I would often kind of, when I was younger, sit back and let the writers decide who they wanted. And then I would join that scrum and, of course, ask questions. You don't just take sound. A lot of people do that. They just go in scrums and don't ask any questions. Drives me crazy. But yeah, it is an awkward situation. I think the most important thing to have, and many people in the media, they just don't have it, is the empathy of I don't know, tone is everything. And I think you understand that tone, empathy when you're asking questions. Of course, you can't be soft. Of course, you've got to ask the questions that fans would want to know, especially when we're talking about professional athletes who make tens of millions of dollars. If you didn't show up, if you're not playing well, if you're making egregious mistakes, and the team is losing because of whatever, someone's attitude, you can't tiptoe around that person. But a lot of the time, it's a hard fought loss. It's a heartbreak. It's devastation. You've been on that side. It's one bad bounce that doesn't go their way. And then you have these people crowding a player and then being what went wrong? Why'd you make that mistake? Why'd you make that pass up the ice? It's dude, if I could have avoided it, I wouldn't have done that. If I knew that I would have a turnover, I wouldn't have done that. And yes, you have to be accountable, but I think the best way to be able to, and sorry, this is such a long-winded way to answer your question, but I think the best way to be able
to. This is great.
Is to show empathy. And, luckily for me now, I can build and have spent the last 6 years building a personal relationship with the players. When I used to be a freelance journalist, so not too long ago, I used to freelance. You come into this room, the girls don't know you, the guys don't know you. You stick a mic in their face and you ask them a question about a loss. It's a little different. And you have to be really sensitive about that. And a lot of the times I will try to soften the question just by being hey, obviously I know you didn't mean to make that turnover, but was anything on your mind tonight? You had some costly mistakes, do you care to share what was going on, or was it, whatever it is. I try to soften it as opposed to direct attack. When it's with the Bruins, great relationship with them now. All of them know me. I'm assuming most of them trust me. They know if I'm going in there after a tough loss, asking questions. They know that it's for the fans and for the people who pay tickets, and they're okay answering them. But I guess, anyway, that's my long-winded answer. But I personally don't have to go grab them anymore. So that kind of helps. There's a bit of a buffer, right? They have their shower, they cool off, PR goes, gets them, they come out, and by the time they're talking to us, they're kind of ready and they've kind of cooled down. So hopefully that paints a picture about that.
No, definitely. Now, it's so great to hear, and it's also a great reminder too that yes, these are humans, right, that we're talking about, and everyone has different emotions, and tone is so important. But I do love being able to find kind of the bright spots and the cool moments even in those losses. And even for a Northwestern team that has been to the national championship for 3 years in a row, and to sit in that defeat, just cool for Kelly Monty-Hiller to come back to Boston, to be in Gillette, and to give her players a really fun scally cap like that. I think it's super special. But another bright spot in the face of another loss, Boston College lost in the semifinals to Northwestern, but my little sister Mallory, captain of the BC women's lacrosse team, scored an amazing goal that just was such a joy for me in the stands, a joy for my family, and I know the team. It was absolutely incredible, a rip from outside the 8-meter. And what was so special about this goal was that my grandfather, Don Hasselbeck, played for the Patriots, was in Foxborough for a significant time of his career, and my sister got to score a month after he had passed away to go be with the Lord. And so it was just so cool to watch my sister in that semifinal game score a goal in a stadium that represents the New England Patriots, a team that my grandfather played for. So really cool moment. And I think those are what, in championships and in Final Fours, when you face that defeat, put on your scally cap, right? Find the joy, find the cool moment in it, and really special moment for our family.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to dive in and just ask you a couple questions about that. So you were in the stands. Did your parents get to be in the stands as well, or who got to be there for your
Yes, we
family?
were all there. I was the only person front row in my family. I will say that. I was down with the other BC alumni, so I was front row. I kept thinking I was going to like fall over, truthfully, because I was screaming so loud and jumping, but I was in my BC neon. I was front row and saw her go in, got my camera out, and I mean, it wasn't even 30 seconds before she got the ball and took it in and scored. So I didn't even have time to really process that she was in the game, let alone process that she was going to score the goal. And I had my camera out videoing, and it stopped right after the ball went in the net, probably because my hand flew in the air and I was freaking out. But it was really special. And yeah, like in those moments, sometimes you need those energy switches. You need those momentum boosters and running, getting someone in the game. And she just said, I'm taking this and we're going to goal. And it really did light a fire under that team. And it was really special to see her, put the team on her back in that situation.
Yeah, and sorry, pardon my ignorance in terms of like lacrosse, and that's why you're the expert about it. But tell me, so how did your sister? Well, they put her in. Like, what was the scenario that she like got in on
Yeah,
the field?
she came off the bench, came out of the sub box, came in hot. The ball was on the defensive side, so she was on the offensive side. You have to kind of stand behind a line, so she wasn't in on defense. Gets the ball quickly in transition on offense, and I mean, just blows by defenders. I think she had noticed that one of the best defenders wasn't on her, so that was her key. I'm going. That was her green light, and so she shot it really far out. Usually, lacrosse goals are scored right above the crease, right in front of the net. But this was, I mean, as far out as it really gets. And it was an absolute rip. But I think the cool part is that I've seen her do that in our backyard so many times, especially playing defense on myself. So it was a really cool moment. And yeah, just glad that we got to capture it that way.
I remember talking to you last year, like I said, year anniversary kind of the show, and you were coming off of the whole grind and everything like that. But I didn't know, were you and your sister ever teammates at the same time?
Yes. So we were teammates for 3 years. So she is just 16 months younger than me. So we got to play in go to three national championships together, which was just incredible to experience that with her. And yes, we did lose national championships together too. I think our first two were both losses, and the third, my senior year, was a win. So really cool to just have that experience with her, winning or losing. You go through a lot in both of those situations. And so to see her help the team get back to a Final Four this year as a captain was so special for me, because I know how hard it is. I know what it takes. And even the responsibility as a senior, let alone a captain, is so heavy. And there's so much weight, and there's so much a standard to live up to. And she really led the girls really well. And you can just see by looking at the sideline and how people react, that's the judgment of just her character. And it was really cool. I mean, she is a baller. And so that team, just props to them for an incredible season, and really fun to watch and see all the young girls wear their neon to BC lacrosse games.
That's so exciting. Congrats to you and your family. And obviously, like you said, that bow tie moment from grandfather to granddaughter in the same stadium. So awesome story. And I'm glad you got to go check out the national championships at Gillette Stadium. And the men, I think that's happening right now, right? As we speak?
The men are happening right now. Yes, we have Cornell versus Maryland, and it's a huge matchup, pretty wild. And these are just two star-studded teams. 3 years ago, Cornell fell to the Maryland Terps in the NCAA championship, 9-7. So will they get their revenge? The game is going on right now. So Sophia and I do not know what the score of this game is, but maybe we'll see. I got to go to the semifinal games, and those Cornell fans came out big time. And the Maryland fans came out big time. And even though you're in an NFL stadium, I really do think that fan zones play a role and have a factor, because you do need, in those momentum switch moments, the more sound and more energy that you're getting from your sideline. I know the women's teams were turning around, egging their fans on, trying to cheer them up. Like, you get so into it. So this is a huge matchup. It's going on as we speak. But the NCAA already announced where the men's Final Four will be next year, 2026. It will be held at UVA's football Scott Stadium, which is a hotbed for lacrosse, which is such a great idea, in my opinion, because you want to go where other lacrosse players already are. You want to go where the crowds will be, where the young guys and the young girls will want to come from their club practices right into the Final Four. And I think that's what not only is going to get you more fans, but it's going to get you more high-level elite lacrosse players in college in the future, because that's where my dream to play college lacrosse was born, going to the Final Fours. My first ever college lacrosse Final Four that I watched was at Gillette Stadium 8 years ago. So special. So I just think that it's really cool that they're going to be in a place in Virginia at UVA where lacrosse is such a thing, because I think it creates so much opportunity. But really, the question in my mind is, can the girls also play there? Because it's really cool when you get to have the guys and the girls tournament in the same spot, just because of that crossover that I mentioned earlier. But we will see. It hasn't been announced yet, so Sophia and I will have to get back to everybody, hopefully, when that announcement comes out. But coming up, we'll jump into some hot things going on in women's sports. We'll get you our girl on fire for the week, something that Sophia and I like to do here on the show, just to get you who you should keep your eye on, who you should be cheering for. So stay tuned for our girl on fire of this week. All right, we got our girl on fire of the week. This is my favorite segment that we do at Respect Your Game. But Sophia, I will let you go first. Who is your girl on fire for this week?
Okay, super impressed, even though I am not a mother, but aspire to be one day. Just so many of my friends are having kids, and I'm seeing firsthand, like, how hard it is just to continue basic life after you've given birth. We do not give enough credit to women and their bodies. And I also don't believe we give them enough rest, but that's a tangent I won't get into. So I'm highlighting an athlete, Stephanie Case, and I'm just looking at the IG post right here because I want to say it exactly what happened. But she stopped to breastfeed her 6-month-old in the middle of her ultra marathon. Okay, so an ultra marathon, and she still went on to win. So I'm just going to read a quick headline. She's 43 years old. She won the Snowdonia Ultra Marathon, which is 62 miles. That's in North Wales. She finished in 16 hours and 53 minutes. Unbelievable to just do that for 16 hours and 53 minutes to men and women who do that. But of course, 6 months after giving birth, and then she stopped to breastfeed her baby. It says here that she hadn't raced in 3 years. She's gone through multiple miscarriages. Her body went through a lot of ups and downs, has this beautiful baby. Her 6-month-old baby's name is Pepper, and she breastfed her baby and still won the race. I mean, to anyone running, congratulations, whether you finished first or last, like doing an ultra marathon. But the fact that she was able to do that, like, how incredible are our bodies, and what we don't understand. And again, I'm not speaking from personal experience, but everything that's changing, and to be able to do that, provide for your baby and still win, like, impossible not to highlight, right?
Impossible. That is incredible. Just to even do that type of a competition in a race is crazy, let alone be taking care of another human during it. That is incredible. But my girl on fire, Kelsey Plum, she's made a few appearances on Respect Her Game's Girl on Fire, and man, she's just taking this new team by storm. She's letting LA know that she is here. She had 28 points and 6 assists in the last game. She's shooting deep from the three. And I just love this because you're coming into a new team. You're setting the standard. I'm a veteran player. I know what's up. And I just love it. And you know that her former team, the Aces, are really missing her this season. And she's having fun doing it. You can see her give a little taunting action out there like we saw over the weekend, and smiling at the free throw line like always. But shout out to Kelsey Plum for all she's been doing. But I know we have a big game tonight, Sophia. So I'd love to ask you, Game 4, Panthers-Hurricanes, do you think Florida can end the series tonight?
Absolutely. I think they can. It's no question that they can. Will they? I don't know. Carolina's a very good team. They made it to the Eastern Conference Final for a reason. They haven't had any success in an Eastern Conference Final in a long time, which is a whole other storyline. But absolutely can they. Will they? We'll see. I thought this series was going to go 5 games. I thought Florida would win 4-1. Right now, they're looking at a 4-0 sweep if they win tonight. And in the last few games, the way they've dominated has been unreal. So it's trending in that direction. But my favorite thing, always talk about that, is the parity, is how, equally matched teams are. Florida does seem to be on a different level this year. So they're the Stanley Cup champions. They're looking to do a repeat, looking to go back to the final. And if they do this in 4, they're going to have some nice rest. The Edmonton Oilers started a day after them with the Dallas Stars in the series, and the series is now 2-1. So regardless, it's not going to be a sweep. They're going to have to play out a couple more games. If Florida gets the sweep, they're going to get the rest, which is so important at this stage of the game, especially when you're expecting a 7-game grind, which they would be to whoever they're facing. Of course, if Carolina isn't able to come back. I don't like counting a team out at all, ever. Even if they're down 5-0 in the third period, I don't like.
You
counting
never
them
know.
out.
You never know. It's sports.
You never know. Exactly. But all things are leading to Florida being in the final. And like I said, if they do it in a sweep, it's just going to be huge for them. That's their motivation. Get those days of rest, watch their potential opponents for the next couple of days, and set themselves up for a repeat. But we'll have to see what happens tonight. I predict it will be over in 1 or 2 games if it's not over tonight for sure.
Good. Well, I'm excited, and it'll really be interesting to see how Bruins fans handle this with, all the movement that we've seen during this season. But I'm excited. It's always fun to be in the playoffs, whether, unfortunately our C's aren't in it, but it is fun just to be in this atmosphere and all the things. But Sophia, so fun to do a Respect Her game with you today. We'll see you guys next week, every Monday. Thanks so much for tuning in.